Hey everyone, welcome to chapter number 13 on stakeholder management. My name is Cameron Wideman. I worked on this presentation together with Allison Westerheide. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here as she had to, for the recording as she had to catch a flight. So stakeholder management helps you figure out who your stakeholders are, how to plan for their engagement, and how to manage your project and keep stakeholders satisfied. There are four key steps to this. The first step is to identify your stakeholders. This takes time and it is a very crucial step into starting your project. You have to do this before anything else in your project. The second step is to plan your stakeholders engagement or management. This is where you figure out what stakeholders' current engagement level, how you get their and how you get their support. Make sure you know who you need to engage to keep the project on track. The third step is managing stakeholder engagement. This is where you work with your stakeholders to understand their needs and maintain their involvement in decisions that affect them throughout the project. And then lastly, you have controlling stakeholder engagement. This is where you will track your stakeholders' relationships that you've built with them, and you try to adjust your plans and your actions to accommodate all of the different needs that they might have. Stakeholder requirements and expectations change over a project timeline, so you have to make sure that you stay on top of those changes and adjust accordingly. All right, so who are your stakeholders? Identifying stakeholders is a process of writing down stakeholder names along with their goals, expectations, and concerns. This is generally done in a document called the Stakeholder Register, which can make or break your project. Doing this upfront helps you build a strategy of how to identify people who could impact the project or need more convincing of its value. The different inputs, there's several different inputs to your stakeholder register. The first one is your project charter. This tells you who's funding and championing your project. From there, you have procurement documents, which is all of your suppliers and vendors that are listed in your contracts. They should also be a part of your stakeholder list. In addition to that, you also have enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets. As far as stakeholder analysis goes, this is a very critical part of understanding your stakeholders. You want to interview all the stakeholders you can find and find out the value of the project to them. While you're interviewing these stakeholders, you also want to get an idea of who else might be stakeholders for your project, and you also want to interview them. From there, you can divide your stakeholders into groups based on involvement and communication needs. You want to understand your stakeholders' motivations. You want to come up with a strategy to make sure that they are informed of the things they find important and not bored with extra detail. From here, you want to get expert judgment. This means talking to all your experts on your project to identify more stakeholders and learn about those identified. Meetings are a great tool for getting everyone together to think through impacted stakeholders and try to identify more stakeholders. The outputs from your stakeholder analysis. The classification tells you if the stakeholder is internal or external, a supporter, a resistor, a neutral, or a participant. Stakeholder register tells you what individual stakeholder gets what out of the project, so you can help show them what the true value of your project is. This includes their name, responsibilities, requirements, expectations, and classification. People with high power and low interest, these are the people that you want to keep in the loop and keep these people satisfied regardless of their interests. While they might not be very interested in your project, they have the power to make big impacts on your project, so you want to make sure that they are satisfied. From there, we have the people with low interest and low power. These are the people that we need to care least about, as they aren't very interested and don't have the power to affect your project. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the people with high power and high interest. These are your decision makers. They have the biggest impact on your project's success, and you want to closely manage their expectations. And then lastly, you have people with high interest and low power. While they might not have the power to directly affect your project, it is good to keep them informed and in the know because they can help you generate good buzz. The third step for stakeholder management is to plan your stakeholder management. Analytic techniques, figuring out how engaged stakeholders are now and how engaged do you want them to be. There are 5 different levels of engagement for your stakeholders. The first one is completely unaware. This is like not knowing that the project is happening at all. From there, you have resistant, which means your stakeholder doesn't want the project that you have planned to happen. And then in the middle, we have neutral, which just means your stakeholder is fine with the project regardless. They're just kind of okay with it, whatever. And then from there, we have supportive and then up to leading. Leading eventually leads to your stakeholders actively helping the project to succeed. knowing who your stakeholders are isn't enough for your project to succeed. You also need to understand what motivates them, and you want what will make your project have the most value for them. And the best way to do this is to use a stakeholder management engagement assessment matrix. So the last step is to control stakeholders' engagements. This tends to do with taking all of the information that you've gathered from your stakeholders and combining it into one place and using that information to adapt your plan and to hopefully create a better project for your stakeholders. There are 5 different general areas that, as far as control stakeholders engagement goes. The first one is work performance information. This is like the analyzed performance data that you use to make your project decisions. All the information you've taken, you want to analyze it and get the important information from it, and you want to use this information to potentially adjust your project and make decisions regarding your project. The second thing is your project documents updates. This happens as you monitor and control your stakeholders' engagements. For example, if you discover new stakeholders, you're going to need to update your stakeholder register. The third thing is change requests. You're often going to find yourself making adjustments to accommodate to your stakeholders' needs, and when you do this, you need to submit a change request. Fourth thing is your project management plan updates. Stakeholders may request that your project change, or they might not be very happy with the way your project is going, and you might have to take that into consideration and make changes to your project plan. And then lastly, you have your organizational process asset updates. These need to be done, especially your lessons learned. That's the most important. That is all that we have for this chapter of our book. I hope you found this presentation helpful. I'll be posting the slides as well along with this. Thank you for listening.